our business blew up so much that hiring people became a necessity.
Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hello and welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. With me, excited to have Pat Hiban. Pat, how are you doing today?
Awesome, Todd. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit about Pat. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of him. He's the founder and former chairman of, is it Rebus University?
Yep, Rebus for
Rebus.
real estate business.
Real estate business. As a former host and founder of the real estate podcast, Real Estate Rockstars, which is still running just with a new host, had featured guests including Robert Kiyosaki, Barbara Corcoran. Pat is also a former real estate agent out of the Baltimore area and was $1 billion agent, awarded the #1 ReMax agent by gross commissions in the world in 2004. #1 Keller Williams agent in units sold nationwide 2006. Best-selling author. All kinds of awesome stuff. He's also one of the founders of GoBundance, which is a mastermind group, an adventure group for wealthy, healthy, generous individuals who want to lead epic life. So, man, lots of stuff, lots more that can be talked about. But Pat, why don't you give our listeners more about your background, your story, and then we'll lead in.
Yeah. I'm from Maryland. I was born in Georgetown Hospital, Washington, D.C., right outside of Maryland. And grew up there, grew up in Columbia, Maryland, 5 kids in a family, went to a local college there, and basically got into real estate sales right out of college, 21 years old. I'm an October baby, so I was early. So I went into real estate. It wasn't one of these soul things where it's like do what you're passionate about and do what you love. I didn't really know what I loved other than partying and friends and
that's what you love at 21 is a little different than what you love in your 40s and 50s.
I didn't get that concept at all. So, I wanted money really bad, I think. So that kind of helped. And I also knew what I didn't love, and that was bosses and authority figures. So I think I that helped a lot too. So I kind of based it on that, but I went in and just started selling real estate. And I had a career lasted over 25 years selling real estate. Grew it year by year, every year. Eventually had my own brokerage, had a mortgage company, a title company, investments, everything. Then, when the bubble burst in, say, 2007, I just kind of developed a negative neuro association to the whole game. And eventually got out, became more of an investor, started a company with 3 other partners called DAPT Acquisitions, which is a multifamily company. Today we have over 2,000 units of multifamilies, apartment buildings. Bought a bunch of little onesie twosies myself, rented those out, bought some commercial properties. And then I started GoBundance with 2 other guys. It's been 10 years now, I guess. And that's done really well. Like you said, it's between the men's tribe and the women's tribe, we have over 800 members. And then we have something called Emerge and Ascend, which is the beginner level, not yet a millionaire. And there's probably another 100 in there. So we're creeping on over 1,000 people we're changing lives with and for. currently. And that's it. You know, I have 2 kids. They're in their 20s. And my wife and I live in South Carolina, but we have a couple other houses we bounce around to as well. So yeah, so that's what I do.
Man, I love the intro there. You kind of just made it sound like no big deal. Like you just kind of are a guy, which I love, very humble. So, but we're gonna dive in a little bit and learn more about this guy. Um, I want to I want to talk about some of the more current things that you're doing. The multifamily company, is that something that you're mostly passive in or active? Are you guys buying those properties yourselves and managing and that type of stuff, or what's give me kind of the rundown of that company?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So whenever you start a company out, and someone asked me this recently, actually, like what to look for in business partners, whenever you start a company out, I think the key is that you pick partners that you actually kind of complement, and kind of balance. Like you don't want to both be the same. And so
Yeah.
what happened was it's for DAPT Acquisitions, stands for David, Andrew, Pat, and Tim. 4 guys, and we did a bunch of traveling together, and we hung out and we talked about the same things. And Andrew, who is our main guy, was an electrical engineer, and he wanted to quit his job as an electrical engineer. Tim Rode, our partner, was actually at the time a coach for foreclosures.com on how to buy foreclosures. And he was coaching Andrew out of his job into becoming a foreclosure buyer. And Andrew knew nobody. David Osborne and myself, along with Tim Rode, knew a ton of people. Like, you know, I had been 25 some years in real estate with all the major companies, been to all the major conventions, did a lot of conventioning. I just knew and know people all over the world, right, in the real estate game, people with money. Andrew didn't know anybody. You know, his sphere of influence was on both his hands. Yet he was a genius when it came to numbers. So we worked out a partnership where we would bring the people and also the money. We all had money. We were already rich. Andrew was starting out, let's, for lack of a better way to put it. So like the first 5 deals, we didn't syndicate. We just did them all ourselves. So we each put,
Sure.
you know, 100, 200, 300 grand each in. It would make $1 million, and then we'd sign the loan. And, you know, that was our bet. My point to all this is that's what we brought to the table at the time. But of course, over time, now it's been 10 years and we've probably done 15 deals. Over time, what happens is that list, that email list, just grows, reputation grows, GoBundance grows, Andrew's sphere of influence has grown astronomically. And our value as people that know other people has dissipated. His value has increased because not only is he the numbers guy, but now he's the management guy, the operating partner guy, the one that oversees like 6 employees and a management company that has another 10 employees, and, you know, or 20, and finding all the new deals and everything else. So what happened as originally was a large, you know, split, more of an even split, has changed, and we're fine with it, to where our percentage, David, Tim, and Pat's percentages have dropped, and Andrew's has increased. We've added 2 other people who get percentages now that are essentially workers who don't get a salary, but just get paid when they find deals and then own a part of the deal for life. And to make a long story short, to answer your original question, my job has become basically nothing other than adding a couple people here and there to the list of potential syndicated limited partners. And from time to time, I'll sign on a loan, a non-recourse loan, and get a loan signature fee for that. But for the most part, it's nothing. I don't do anything, and we're except invest on the LP side. So I invest in all our deals on the LP side, just because I believe in them. But I'm lucky in that I still get a portion on the GP side. So did I answer your question? And did I answer?
Absolutely. No, that's a great we actually had Andrew Cushman on the show. Man, boy, I probably have to have him back on, because I bet that was right around like maybe episode, let's call it 100, and this will be around episode 500. So I should have him back on. It's been a long time. He's a great guy. I love Andrew, and it's great that you're in business with him. And it actually goes back to what you said earlier too, is that you are aligning with these people and you're just aligning with the right people, right? That everybody doesn't have the same skills or same, Andrew brings a totally different skill set than what you do. And, you're bringing the connections, I think you're probably downplaying what you bring, because you bring in a lot of people that just trust the name, right? They know your name, they know who you are, they like you, they trust you. And so you're bringing those people into the company that want to be LP investors. So you're probably downplaying a little bit of maybe what you bring to the table, but.
And I think in the beginning, we also brought to each other cumulatively, cohesively as a foursome, a belief that we could do this, especially
that's huge.
Since we did the first 4 or 5 we did, we just did them ourselves. And then as time goes on, they get bigger, you know what I mean? And then you're like, can we raise it? It's kind of funny looking back. Like in 2011, I have emails on some of these deals that we still own, and I'll go back because I'll forget like how much I put into them originally and stuff. And I'll go back and sort through the old emails and look. And, we were begging in the beginning. We were like, hey, we're buying an apartment. Do you want to put in 50 grand? Here's the deal. And it was kind of unheard of. Like, it was not many people did that.
Yep. And it wasn't as public, right? The podcasts weren't around, and
podcasts weren't around.
Yep. Yeah. So it's a lot different. It was definitely a lot different trying to get money in 2008, 9, 10, 11 than it is right now. It's so much, the technology, the social media has just blown up, and it's so much easier to get in front of people.
Yeah, that's right. There was no such thing. That word wasn't even in the dictionary, podcast. It was email and like the printout with like the details and a couple of photos. And
I remember starting this, real estate. My first purchases were back in 2008. I remember in 2007, 2008, driving around my car with literally a tape deck. That's how I instead of listening to a podcast, I'd be listening to an audio tape or CD in my car. And there wasn't a podcast. That's what you listen to.
I think about that from time to time. I don't know if it's something that will last forever, or it's like kind of a wave up and down, because like real estate investing, like wasn't even a thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like very few people did it. And the people that did it were like, the guy that bought like one house a year and then
Sure.
ended up, retired with like 30 houses and did all the management himself. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that was real estate investing. And then there were the big dogs who had office buildings and stuff like that. But this whole thing has just opened up to so many normal people, which is good. It's kind of like what happened when they made the stock market. It allowed randoms to invest.
Yep.
But it's just amazing how it's such a top of mind thing. It's such a huge thing now. And I just wonder if it'll ever go back to any less than that, where people will just be like, I'm not going into real estate. I guess a lot of it depends on how the returns are in other asset classes. And also the tax rules, because, the greatest thing about real estate investing is if you can get the real estate professional status, I mean,
Yep.
that's like,
yeah,
huge.
Your tax benefits are massive.
And if they take that away, it could change everything.
I mean, look, I think real estate became very popular, and I think it's business in general too. I mean, being an entrepreneur was not this lucrative thing, and until these podcasts came out, until TV shows came out, and they kind of now make being an entrepreneur a sexy, just like this is, because people see the end result. They don't see those who fail. They don't see those who struggle. They see those who succeed. And those people might talk a little bit about their failures and struggles and stuff like that, but they're mostly talking about their success, and they see their plane and their whatever. And so people get excited about that. And that's the same thing with real estate. I think, HGTV and, all these do it yourself and flip this house and that type of stuff. And then now you got podcasts and, conferences all over the place. I mean, I'm speaking at a conference this week, and I think I swear there's 3 conferences every week talking about the exact same thing. And so things have changed, I think, drastically. And I think you're right, though. If the tax code changes, if the return metrics drastically change, all of a sudden it just doesn't become very attractive for people. So or if the government really highly gets involved more than what they are right now. I mean, those definitely could change. Let's talk about GoBundance. Like back to at the very beginning, what was the reason for this GoBundance group? Foundational. Why'd you start it?
Well, that was definitely unlike the story I was telling before, where I got into real estate just because I didn't know any better. I think GoBundance was much more of a, it's much more later in life, and it was and we didn't even do it, for money by any means. We did it for, and it sounds like a cliche, but we really did it just because we liked talking to other people who thought like us. I mean, essentially what happened was David and I were at another conference, and the guy who was running the conference, one of our mentors, Dr. Fred Gross, said, everybody in the audience pick a person that's going to keep you accountable to your goals. And I saw it was mainly couples, and I had a wife and kids at home, but my kids were like 2 and 3 years old. And so I was there by myself. David was there by himself. And so I looked and saw the only other guy there, kind of like there wasn't a couple. And I nodded my head, and he kind of back nodded his head, and we started talking. And then we started talking about money, and we both loved money and we loved talking about money. And then eventually, a couple of years later, we met Tim Rode at another conference, and same thing. We started talking about money, and we loved talking about money and horizontal income and investing. And then we were like, who else likes to talk about horizontal income and investing, and also likes to do stuff outside and exercise and kind of do guys type of stuff, like dirty stuff. And we started inviting other people. Then we had like one time at David's house in Steamboat, Colorado, we had like 18 guys there, and it was a blast. But it was a blast. And the funny thing is, we organized it. It's just like the type of work, like if you're having a party, right? You do a lot of work to have a party, but you like to do it because you want to have a party.
Yep.
And that's the type of work that it was. It was like we wanted to host 18 guys and just talk about goals. And we weren't going to make any money. We were actually going to lose money on the deal, but we wanted to do it, so we did the work. And then we decided to plus that one, and we had it in Grand Labakan in Lake Tahoe, and we had like 35 guys there. And that's where it became, hey, we should charge for this, because we were exhausted afterwards. So but we love doing it, the same thing, because same reason. So that's when we started charging for it, and lo and behold, to where it is now. And that's a true story. And it was all like just natural. It wasn't it wasn't forceful at all. It was just, we liked doing that. And we actually were tired of each other. Like, we'd spent 10 years like setting goals together and tracking our net worth and things like that. We were tired of each other's stories and excuses and mannerisms and stuff. So we wanted new blood to meet and to introduce us to, and kind of, and so it's a really good company story, because it really is, it would just being ourselves is all. It would just being ourselves and thinking the way we think. And they're like, other people seem to like it. I didn't think, I'll be the first one to tell you, of the other guys, I was more of a negative Nelly, like, man, we're weird. Like, other people aren't going to want to do this. Like they're not going to catch on to this. They're not going to want to pay money to set goals and talk about their net worth and talk about how many lines of horizontal their income they have. And they're, I was so wrong. It's like, people are now like, I'm in South Carolina. We just had a little meetup here, a local meetup, and a brand new guy came to me, Greg, and he was like, thanks so much for starting GoBundance. And the ideas are brilliant, and I'm tapping into everything, and it makes so much sense to me. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what's happening, is it's like changing lives,
How do you keep a company like that? Now, I know you've hired a guy, a CEO to run it, and so you're not necessarily doing everything day to day, but as one of the founders, how do you keep the intent of GoBundance? What you guys originally kind of envisioned as it started to grow. How do you keep that intact?
Yeah, it's hard. Like, it's
you got 1,000, or not quite, but you're approaching 1,000 people. There's a lot of voices, right?
It's hard because and I think all companies go through this. Every company that grows goes through the same cultural struggles, right? And you have older people that have been here since the beginning that remember it when we would just go and hang out and get drunk and hike for 7 days straight, and stuff like that. But over time, as a company grows, especially as owners of a company, you can't you can't do that as much as you can't do that with everybody. And you really shouldn't do it with, I don't know, it becomes, you become more distant, I think, and people see that. I mean, you want to have that intimacy, but it just doesn't work when you start growing so much. And so, so you do have a cultural disconnect, but what we found is that, like, you can create within a large tribe your own tribe, and that is what has happened. Like, even though there's close to 1,000 members, if you are, let's say, a doctor, we make it easy for you to find the other doctors. If you're somebody who loves to talk about crypto, we're going to make it easy for you to find the other crypto heads. If you're single and you like to party and go to nightclubs, we're going to find the other single guys that like to party and go to nightclubs. Like a lot of that happens naturally. You go to enough events and you're like, I really like this guy. He's funny. He's cool. And then next thing you know, you see him again and you're like, hey, you know what I mean? You find your micro tribe within the much larger tribe, and it has the same effect, right? And that's why we have GoPods, to create a mini tribe. That's why we have all the micro tribes. That's why we have the local chapter tribes. I mean, some of the local chapters are like strong, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're getting down, like Philadelphia and Northern California. And, in Northern California, they have all natural. They plan it like a thing where they bring their families and they get campers and tents and they camp out, for a weekend at a lake. In Philly, they're constantly going to sports games and having overnights at a winery or golf days and stuff like that. I mean, and you can really connect on that level if you tap into those. So that's kind of how we've done it, is just encourage people to go micro on who they meet and when they meet. And it's not going to matter whether we get to 1 million. You're still going to be able to have those relationships if you if you make an effort to tap in. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's great. I really love that idea of these small, kind of tribes, and being able to, because you're right. I mean, when you have 1,000 people, how are you going to make friends? You can't make friends with 1,000 people. You can't truly connect with 1,000 people. It just doesn't work. So you're only able to connect with a small portion of people, just reality. But you have access to all these people that are in the tribe. So you have the ability to, as long as you put in the effort, you have the ability to find the right connections that you can really create good relationships.
And it happens. Like we went to Mexico with the GoBundance, which is guys that are 50 years older and their wives, which is 50 years older wives, of course. Now, my wife really liked it because she doesn't like, it's not she doesn't like, but she doesn't like as much talking to a 31-year-old who's got 2 little kids that, is just different conversation than someone who's 57.
Hard to relate to.
Yeah. And like, it's like has a grandkid or hoping for grandkids and, whatever. So, so she connected with like 10 different wives there in Mexico. And I connected with like 10 different guys there and several of them, on a very deep level. And then we're going to go to Jamaica coming up in November, and a bunch of the same guys are going, which is going to be great. And I feel very connected to them. Same thing with the international trip. With this year, we have 30 guys going to Croatia. We rented a mega yacht, and trust me, by the end of that trip, man, there's going to be some of those guys don't know it yet, but they're going to meet somebody on that trip. And when they die, they'll be their pallbearer. Like that's the type of friendships that happen on some of these more intimate trips. Now, that's not going to happen to you if you never go on any of the intimate trips. But it could happen to you in your local tribe and some of these other things. But my point is, you just got to put yourself out there, and it will happen. It's not that it's impossible for it to happen just because we have 1,000 people. It's very possible for it to happen.
Yeah, and that's so true about business and success and just really happiness in life, right? You just got to put yourself out there. If you're always kind of in your shell and not willing to to go outside of your comfort zone, you're never going to create more. You're just going to be where you're at, right? You're going to be stuck where you're at. That leads me to, let's talk about earlier days when you were crushing it in real estate sales. Let's dive into the business side of it. Like, how did you grow that business to selling $1 billion of real estate? I mean, that's a lot of properties to sell, $1 billion in real estate. How did you scale that business to be able to do that?
Yeah. It's interesting. I think I was lucky in that. So, now everybody in real estate has teams, right? That's the thing, right? It's cliche.
Yeah. That wasn't you. You didn't have teams?
No, I did, but no one else did.
Oh,
like
okay.
I don't want to say I created teams because I didn't create teams, but I created teams.
So it wasn't. What you're saying is back then it just wasn't that big of a.
It was frowned upon, actually. Like when I first got into business, you did all the work yourself from start to finish, and it was actually Dr. Fred, our mentor, who taught us, you should delegate things.
Yeah.
And when I started delegating, it was the other agents and the community, at least in the perception was, you didn't do that because your name's on the sign and you should be responsible for every little thing that potentially happens. And
okay.
And I started hiring telemarketers. I started hiring couriers and people to work for me. And then they came out with a concept of a buyer agent. I heard that at actually a seminar, like a ReMax seminar. One guy was doing it in like Texas, and I was like, holy shit. Came back. I was the first person in my market to do that. And then, I started doing television commercials. There was a guy in my market who was doing it, but he was spending like $500 a month on it. Right. I thought it was a pretty good ad. He would slam like a sold sign, like a magnet on his sign. I thought it was pretty good, but I met a guy, Russell Shaw, out of Arizona, who was just crushing it, like killing it, like 500 sales a year, something ridiculous, all on TV. So I became friends with him and I said, can I copy it? He's like, I don't care. So I literally did not change one single word. I had the exact words of his ad. And actually the night before I shot it, he spent 2 hours on the phone just as a favor, just as a nice guy.
Wow.
Practicing with me. And I shot that thing, and like literally the first, it came out on cable television, like CNN. It was on CNN, Fox, MSNBC, CNBC. It was just the news. And it came out the first time, it just blipped for 30 seconds. Someone called the phone and said, I'm going to talk to you about listing my house. I said, holy dirt. I said, this is better than telemarketing, because telemarketing, you're calling somebody in their home and they're picking up and you're talking to them. This is actually, you're showing up in their home. Your face is in your home. Your body's in their home, and you're asking them to call you and sell their house. It is telemarketing. So I blasted it up to like 15 grand a month, man, or something ridiculous. And just like, so there was someone that did it before, but he wasn't doing it the right way, and he wasn't doing it a big way. And I just blasted him out of the water. I mean, he was smoked. And then I was like the TV guy. I mean, and then we started changing our commercial, almost like a TV show, every 6 months. And that was fun time for me because I'm a creative person. So I would spend some couple of months with my buddy Roy, who ran a production company. Me and him would mastermind on like how to make a funnier commercial or how to get better. You know, we'd come up with some shit, and they're all on YouTube still, but we did some hilarious stuff, and the people just bought it up, and then it just grew and it grew and it grew. And we were getting 1 or 2 listing appointments a day at the prime. And just, and so for me, that was natural because it was kind of like, I love building things and building teams and leadership. And I also love the creativity behind the marketing and stuff. And it just fit really well. I never really liked the listing appointment or the buyer appointment. I liked meeting the people, but I didn't like necessarily the relationship when things did not go as they wanted them to go. Or I also became tired. Eventually like true story, I fell asleep at a listing appointment. Not like I fell asleep, but like, how you eat pizza or something for lunch and it was like 3 o'clock.
You're just kind of dozing off. You're doing all these.
Like this. And the lady goes, "You just fell asleep." I go, "Oh man, I had too much for lunch." I went and I threw water on my face. And then she starts talking again, and I went, "Rah." And then I was, and I lost it. I didn't get it. I didn't get the listing. And
She didn't want to give it to Sleepy.
I'm never doing it again. I was like, I'm never going to an appointment again. I'm done. Finished. Anyways, that's kind of how it grew. And it became like our business blew up so much that hiring people became a necessity. So it became easy to hire. And also we became kind of locally famous. So like we literally had agents just showing up at the door going, "I want to get into real estate," or I'm with this brokerage and I don't get any leads, or can I join your team? It was a great time. It was fun. Anyways, that's how we grew that. But it was also a long, slow process. I mean,
it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah, I probably went 8 years before I had an assistant. The first assistant, I think it was 8 years. 8 years. I did it on my own, 100% on my own. And that was selling like 4 houses a month. So I was, which is hard to do by yourself with no assistants and, no team. That was a workaholic schedule, even selling 4 houses a month. That was back in the day where, you could have 15, 20 houses in inventory and not have an assistant, and this shit didn't sell for 6 months,
Yeah. Would you suggest a new business owner coming in, new real estate agent, whatever it might be coming in, would you suggest that they go, 8 years or whatever it takes before they hire their first assistant? Or would you say, no, hire right away, hire as quickly as possible? What do you think?
I mean, now looking back, I would say hire as soon as possible. Now, I made $13,000 my first year. So like I literally had no room to hire anybody.
Yeah.
I would have gone broke. In my second year, I made 24,000. So,
wow.
I mean, I know it becomes, there's a balance, right? But the sooner the better. The key is what you do with the time that you save. Here's where a lot of people get it wrong. They hire somebody right away, or they hire somebody to do the work, but then they go home, then they, whatever, go play golf. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're starting out and you want to kill it, no, you hire someone to do the work, and then you go knock on 100 doors and say, do you want to sell your house? Or you cold call 100 people, or, you know what I mean? You do some sort of dollar productive activity where you're aggressively asking for the business, or it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you got to free up the time so you can create new business. If you're freeing up the time by, if you hire your first assistant, they're hopefully doing some of the paperwork, the work that you probably shouldn't be doing. It's not really making you money. Yeah, it's necessary, but it's not really making you money. You got to be out there selling, knocking on doors, like you said. And if you hire that door knocker, okay, now how do we start getting on TV ads and growing the business so we can hire more door knockers and more people to get the listing appointments? And you've got to always, I agree, if you're in the build mode, got to always be figuring out, what can I do to grow this business, not what can I do to go golfing.
Right.
Yeah.
Providing that's your goal, right? I mean, if your goal is to not make a lot of profit, then that's another story. But yeah, I agree. That's my point, is that in the beginning, if I think you got to work.
A couple last questions, Pat. What's a mistake that you've made that you can pass down to our listeners? How'd you learn from it?
Shit. I mean, I've made a lot of mistakes investing. I think I've also made a lot of wins. Everything I think in life is similar to gambling. It's just a gamble. It's just a big gamble. And so I've certainly lost money. It's funny because we're going to do a panel at GoBundance in Detroit on, with people that have lost, significant sums of money on real estate deals, and also businesses and things. And I think it's going to be an important topic in the next couple of years. But
you get to have the honor of being up there?
I do. Yeah.
All right.
Got about 8 of them,
I don't know if that's good or bad to be up on that panel.
I mean, I've had some home runs, but I've had some, complete losses completely. I just had one. Company Zippy Software, I invested $175,000 in. They went out of business earlier this year, and actually I had 2 just this year, like, 2022, another one prohibited. I put $100,000 in that. I think I got 9 back. So I lost 91,000 on that. So stuff like that happens. I don't know if there's a lesson in it, because if I said, oh, stay in your lane, if I went with a cliche that was stay in your lane, stick to real estate, that sort of thing, I would have missed out on some home runs that I hit as well. I never really made $1 million on a real estate transaction, but I've made $1 million 3 or 4 times on some of these business deals that I've done. But I'm still always, somewhere between 50 and 70% real estate as far as my net worth. So anyways, back to the lesson. An easy one would be sit in a corner and do what you're told. I think a lot of people, you see this, the successful people are the ones that go to a mentor and ask the mentor questions. And then when the mentor gives them answers, they actually do what the mentor says. And lo and behold, they get rich too. It works, right? So, but you have to do it. 99 people will listen to a mentor and write down what they say, but they won't do it. They won't take action on it, and they won't, stick with it.
So true. It's so easy to listen to something you hear from a mentor, from a podcast, from wherever, and you just listen, you nod your head, you write it down, maybe even, but you just do nothing with it. Or reading a book. How many books do you need to read? You read 1 or 2 books, man, just put them to action. Just actually put them to action instead of reading every book in the library and never doing anything.
Right. I agree 100%. Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. And I think my success, especially early on, like when I was a real estate agent, I transformed my business just by listening to the guy on stage, I heard at my 3rd year, I took a course. The guy's like, become a listing agent. Don't work, don't focus on buyers. Buyers will come because people will call off your signs and stuff. All you want to do is focus on listings. And I think like up until that time, in 3 years, I had like 2 listings. And I was like, okay, I'm a listing agent now. And literally just started listing houses. Like, not as easy as that, right? I did what he told me to do step by step. And then I became a listing agent. I never looked back. And I was like, thank God I was, right? Because, I had all these listings and all the other agents were running around selling them for me. So I didn't have to do anything. So I was like, this is a great deal. MLS works.
Love it. Yeah. Take the advice you're given. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to follow everything, right? But at least think about the advice that's being given to you. Understand, does this make sense or does it not? And if it makes sense, run with it. There's a lot of smart people out there that have been there before you that can lead you down the journey to save you a lot of headaches, a lot of, just really shortcut it and make you a whole heap of a lot of money in just like the TV ad. I mean, you used word verbatim what this other guy was saying. You didn't have to recreate the wheel. You just did exactly what he did.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a mentor that said, creativity is the ability to hide the source. He's like, don't get too cute.
Yeah.
Just copy somebody and say it was your idea.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. So Pat, I ask everybody the same question, and wealth is different for everybody. So that's what I like the question. The question is, what are your 3 pillars of wealth creation? 3 pillars of wealth creation.
The first is easy. The first is save. I think most people are terrible savers. Almost all people are terrible savers. Like they just don't.
Yeah.
They don't get high from saving. You have to have like some sort of dopamine rush from saving money. Like I started like I remember hearing people say, my goal is to have 5 Rolex watches. My goal is to have, these cars or these material things. And I never really got off on that. I always got off on having $10,000 in the bank in a certificate of deposit, or having a stock account with a certain amount, or a bar of gold, or a Bitcoin, or whatever it is. My goals were always, I'm going to buy one of those rather than I'm going to buy something material. And I think then that all lends to basically saving, so set your goals to buy investments versus things.
Yep.
The second would be keep the momentum, just keep doing it constantly. I think I have made mistakes in the past, like all through the 90s. Nobody bought and rented real estate, held real estate. barely people, it was a tough market. I mean, it was houses, there were transactions, but it was the same. It was probably an 8 or 9 year period where, the same amount of houses would sell every year. I wish I had just bought a simple house or two, maybe every 6 months or every 12 months, bought a house and just kept it forever. So I would say just keep buying. The old ad is a dollar cost averaging, and no matter what it is, whatever you're doing, whatever you're saving for, just even if it's cash, just keep plugging away at, or whatever you're investing in. It's hard to get rich only saving, right? You have to save and then you have to invest. So the second one would be invest, but invest regularly, like every 6 months or more. I'm constantly moving furniture around, and I just sold a shopping center I had for 14 years. I'm deploying that 300,000 now or not. Some of it I'm waiting on. I'm constantly buying and selling. Just keep the momentum with your investments, I think is a good thing. And then the third one would be, it's probably a good time to say this, and not a lot of people would agree with me on this, but you should have some diversification, I believe, especially in non-correlating assets. Very difficult because a lot of assets correlate. You've seen recently, crypto fell the same time the stock market fell. So that's correlating, right? Real estate has not fallen yet. But it will. There's still a lot of gas in real estate. There's, so I think that I'm always more real estate than anything else, but at the same time, I invest in other things. I like to maintain a certain amount of cash. I like to maintain a lower loan to value ratio than most people are comfortable with. And I consider that diversification, right? I consider that a hedge.
Yep. Yeah. And most financial planners are probably telling you to diversify, but they're telling you to diversify in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, which that's not diversification.
They're all the same thing, except
same
bonds.
thing.
And bonds. I heard a podcast yesterday. A guy was talking about a 6% bond with Oracle that's pretty much guaranteed that's paying 6%. I mean, if you start seeing more and more of that coming out, that's a great deal, because a lot of the real estate now is only paying 2%. So, much less of a risk. You don't get the tax breaks, but still it's starting to get interesting, put it that way.
Yeah, it's starting to get interesting. We could talk more about that, of course. I'm already over time with you, so I do want to respect that. But we could definitely talk about the interesting market and what's happening today. Man, that's a whole nother episode. Pat, look, I really appreciate your time. It's been fun just kind of going down this journey with you. Super humble, so I appreciate just hearing how you talk about your success and just kind of a regular dude. So I love listening to your story. Really appreciate the information you've given to our listeners. Pat, if people want to learn more about you, learn more about GoBundance, learn more about just what you got going on, how can they reach out?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a website that really does anything but goes to my book. I have a couple of books, 6 Steps to 7 Figures. I have Tribe of Millionaires, and Tim Rohde and I just wrote a book called the Quitters Manifesto, which is coming out on August 13th. So soon, like less than 2 months. And that's with Bigger Pockets Publishing. And we're real excited about that. That will be found on the quittersmanifesto.com, I think. Just plain old quittersmanifesto.com. And and then of course you could just Google my name, and I'm around.
Awesome. Well, Pat, again, really appreciate your time. Appreciate the insights you've been able to give. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Good hanging out with you, Todd.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. Say, I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. But your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out, and we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.